Good evening and welcome. I'm Nat Welch, co-chair of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail Advisory Committee. I'm calling this meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. Today's agenda was posted on our webpage on the town website. This public meeting is being broadcast via Zoom. I guess it's not officially broadcast, but it is available by Zoom and it is being recorded. Excuse me. Today's this meeting is held under the authority of the executive order in force until July 15, 2022, the remote meeting provisions, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. All votes will be taken by roll call vote. If you are on Zoom, please make sure your Zoom name accurately identifies you. Please mute your microphone, raise your hand, use the raise your hand feature, and we will call on you when we take public comments. And when called in, please identify yourself with your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 2 minutes. In the event of any technical difficulties where Zoom becomes unavailable and we cannot recover within 5 minutes, this meeting will be ended and all matters in the agenda that have not been heard will be automatically continued to our next meeting. Tonight we have a recorder. The minutes for tonight's meeting will be taken by committee member Adrian Boardman. Adrian, thank you very much as always. At this time, I will ask committee members to indicate that they are present when I call their name. Richard Follander.
Present.
John Soden.
Present.
Deborah Adelman.
Present.
Adrian Boardman.
Present.
Dorcas Miller. Dorcas Miller is here and she is muted. You can nod your head if you want, Dorcas, and we will acknowledge you're here. Hold on. She's working on her microphone. Dorcas.
I'm here.
Present. Excellent. Thank you. Sam Stearns is not present. He is mentioned he would not be able to be. Tracy Hansen.
I'm present.
Mary Beth Parker. You are muted, Mary Beth.
Present.
Thank you and welcome back. And Nat Welch is present. So we have 8 of 9 members and therefore we have a quorum for tonight's meeting. First agenda item is to approve the minutes from the April 7th meeting. Those were sent to committee members earlier. Does any committee member have any comments or questions on the minutes from our meeting last month? Okay. Can I have a motion to?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Henson. Second, thank you, Mr. Vollander. Roll call vote to approve the minutes of April 7th. Ms. Adelman.
Approved.
Ms. Boardman.
Approved.
Mr. Vollander.
Yes.
Mr. Hanson.
Ms. Hanson approved.
I'm sorry. I'm having gender issues today. Sorry. Ms. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Soden.
Aye.
Mrs. Stearns is not here. Ms. Barker.
Approve.
Thank you. And Mr. Welch approves. The minutes are approved unanimously by those members present. I'd like to turn the floor over to Marcia Rasmussen, Director of Planning and Land Management, to provide her monthly update. Marcia, the floor is yours.
Okay, it's been a busy week. We had a progress meeting on the bridge over Route 2 this morning, and the project update is that they've requested an extension of time for completion of the project to November 30th this year, 2022. And that's due to a couple of items that are weather dependent. The first being the staining for the walls, the abutments, that will be in the same color palette as is at Crosby's Corner, at the tunnel on Powder Mill Road, and on the bridge over 2A in Acton. So it'll be that nice warm brown and gold and orange palette, but that takes 3 to 4 months. That is scheduled to start around and about May 16th. It takes 3 to 4 weeks to have it installed. It cannot be applied when it is raining or wet. And then it will need at least a week to cure before they are able to apply the anti-graffiti materials. So we're looking at early to mid-June for completion of the staining and anti-graffiti material, which impacts the planting schedule. The person installing all the plant materials doesn't want to have to organize and get gear up twice. So they have requested installation of the landscape materials in the fall. September, October, and early November are the best time periods for plant materials, and which is part of the reason why this has been the requested extension to completion. Paving, the top course of paving is expected to be applied in mid-July. And prior to that, we will be doing a walkthrough with the state's landscape architect, Delia Kay, and myself to identify any additional branches or limbs that need to be removed that appear that they might be problematic over the next year or so due to weather conditions. So we'll be doing a final trimming and pruning prior to the installation of the final course of pavement, because they don't want to have to bring heavy equipment out once it's finally paved. It was a very good site visit. The wildlife culvert is having some issues because the sand pad that is to identify different tracks, such as salamander and small creatures that don't trigger the cameras, is being flooded periodically. So we're trying to identify how we can correct that situation in the field, and Mass DOT is working on that. Additionally, we walked over the bridge, so we were able to view both sides. There's drainage basins being installed on the south side of the abutments. But what I realized is it's going to be really interesting to continue the conversation with the town of Acton as they want to move into the trying to identify a pathway over to the School Street playing field. So I think that's going to be a long-term goal and a long-term discussion, and probably involve another small bridge over the Neshoba Brook. So that was this morning. Also on 2C, I know that Tracy and Adrian and Nat have met in August or on April 26th, and we'll have a report and update today. So I don't need to go there. The last half mile, there were some issues or questions about the additional fencing. Mass DOT has agreed to pay for the additional 200 feet of three-rail wooden fence that we've requested along the White Pond area. I initially suggested that there be a break in the fence, a 5-foot wide break that would allow the Old Picard Farm Trust to continue to access their land over the existing trails. The White Pond Advisory Committee emailed the select board and asked that be removed. So Natural Resources Director Delia Kay, our land manager Will Holden, and myself walked the site and determined that yes, we could, but that meant we would stop the fence just short of where the embankment begins to rise again, south of the White Pond area. And that would allow people to connect to another trail that exists. And these trails also will connect to the Old Picard Farm Trust trails, as well as allow for creation of an additional trail that will be able to access the town-owned land. And the Trails Committee was out on site with Delia this morning, and Josh Gelper, the chair of the White Pond Advisory Committee, was also present. So he's aware of that final change in the plans, which has been incorporated into the 100% design plans that are currently available on your webpage, labeled as 100% design plans. And then great news from the town of Sudbury, all 4 of their warrant articles for 2D were approved at their town meeting this year.
Yeah.
Monday night, they approved the easements and the funding for funding for those private easements, and approved the lease with Mass Department of Transportation. So that will allow the project to move forward and be advertised with construction possibly this fall, but more likely next spring, given what I've observed with our projects. And then last night, both funding requests for community preservation funds were approved for beginning design and feasibility for two aspects, one connecting from the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail to the Mass Central Rail Trail, and the other to allow for a feasibility study of phase 3 going to Framingham. So this is great news all the way around. The Community Connections Grant, the funding for bike shelters and bike racks in West Concord. That project is finally getting installed. If you've been out there, I provided a small picture in the monthly update, and that's available. The monthly update is available on your webpage. It was posted late this evening. So that's underway and will be installed by the end of the month. We have received our reimbursement check for those funds, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
Concord Prison, Concord
I
Prison
said, yeah.
Yay. Concord Prison Cemetery, we received the estimate for an informational panel that might go at that prison site, and I forwarded that to the Concord Prison Outreach and those other individuals who are interested in promoting that project and maybe seeking some additional funding. And then lastly is the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism grant that was awarded to the town of Acton. Acton reached out and asked if we would be interested in participating for wayfinding along the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. And so this evening you'll have Mark Favor of Favorman Design joining you around 8 o'clock. He's presenting this evening to the Acton Economic Development Committee, and will be continuing with you this evening. He presented to the West Concord Junction Cultural District on Tuesday night. They were very favorable with the plan and where the concepts are going. And this is a fast track project. We're hoping to have materials under agreement or a purchase order for them by the end of June. So it's we're working very quickly with the town of Acton. They have a lot more work than we do. There are 3 locations. Mark will talk about this more, but there are 3 locations we've identified in Concord. One is near Giroux Park to notify people that this is a recreation area and there are restrooms available. That's that park that's being developed on the north side of Warner's Pond. And then a sign that will go, sort of a directory sign that will go near the area of either Neshoba Brook Bridge or closer in toward the train station, where there is already we're right next to the bike shelters and bike racks, so to help orient people once they get into Concord Center. And then looking at the backside of the existing wooden kiosk at Main Street as another location for a directory to help orient people to the services and goods that are available in West Concord. So that's my update.
Awesome.
Questions from the committee?
Ms. Miller?
Question about, do we have to worry about handicap access where the fence ends and goes into trails?
We shouldn't. It's accessible. It can be assessed. It is accessible. It will be right near there. So.
Is that something we should follow up on? I mean, it's at a.
No, I
Okay,
think that's.
Okay. Go ahead. Marcia, you were finishing?
No, I'm done.
Okay, all right. Team, John, you had a question?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, sorry, go ahead, Richard.
Marcia, in terms of the completion date now, November, what does that mean in terms of an official opening? And also what does that mean in terms of people using it all this summer?
People are already using it,
Sure.
much to the consternation of the contractor. It is a liability for the contractor. He's posting it regularly. People are destroying the gates and the signs. So it's a serious problem. And I don't. They were unwilling to commit to anything more than just they're requesting the extension to the completion date.
Okay, so in terms of an official, politician, state officials, town officials, that can't happen until the contractor releases
I
everything?
don't have an answer for that.
Be November, which would not be a great time, obviously.
Understood,
Okay, so, but in terms of July, that's off the table at this point,
correct.
because they will be doing significant work still. All right,
Yes.
thank you.
So Marcia, at the risk of being annoying, can we get some idea maybe in a month or so, given that most of the work is going to be done, when people can, when the contractor won't be upset with people using the trail, that there's no more sand up there or whatever, the fences are all up.
They are still constructing. They will be paving. They will not want people on the new pavement until, that's going to be happening in July. Anybody who's on the trail is trespassing. I can't be more clear about that.
Okay,
And-
no, I wanted to get some clarity if there's a period when, because I know that the Acton Trail opened unofficially before, they had the celebration and everything. But as I said, I don't want to be annoying. I just want to get some clarity, because I know I've already been asked by 50 people, what are we gonna be doing?
The contractor, Mass DOT, and my office is very much aware that people want to be out there, and they will do what they can. But right now, there is no
Okay.
commitment one way or the other.
Okay, good. I appreciate that. Other questions from the committee?
Yeah, this is Debbie. Hi, everybody.
Hey, Debbie.
I know that I thought Sudbury had voted down something at their recent town meeting that we were troubled by. Or maybe I'm confusing that with
Bedford.
Bedford.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
I think Sudbury's a go. I do have a question about Sudbury, which is the community development grant, whatever it's called, with regard to connecting to the MCRT. I thought that the current plans already showed an intersection with the MCRT. That there was like a little roundabout that they had there. So, okay, well, it's not our town, so we don't have to worry about it. Never mind.
Is that Minuteman, Nat?
Excuse me?
Is that Minuteman, the MT?
No,
MT?
I'm sorry, Mass Central Rail Trail. It's the one that is currently open in Weston and whatever that other town is, Wayland. And it goes right near Route 20. And then as you drive on Route 20, there's like an old railroad bridge to the left as you're going westbound. And it's eventually, we hope it'll extend all the way out to Northampton. But I thought I saw on the plans that it was going to connect to the Bruce Freeman. It crosses. The Bruce Freeman will cross it no matter what. Let's see.
Sorry, Nat, one question.
Yeah, go ahead, Adrienne.
Marcia, I think in your update, you mentioned one of the CPC requests through the Sudbury town meeting. And I seem to recall that there was also a CPC request through Concord town meeting, but I know we had scaled differently over time. Can you remind me what was included in that? And I think that did pass, correct?
Correct. That was under the Article 26 for CPC funding, and it's $30,000 for the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. I was hoping to be able to use that toward the Concord prison connections, the cemetery connection. However, I'm still waiting to hear back from Mass DOT on the additional funding request for the design, the phase 2D design. Our designer had to provide a great deal more information and collaboration with the Sudbury designer. The request went to Mass DOT to see if they had any additional design funds, and if Mass DOT is unable to fund it, then we'll be looking to the CPC funds for this. So
Okay. For the prison?
no, if the design funds are not reimbursed by Mass DOT, the town of Concord will be on the hook for them.
For that,
And
okay.
So the funds that we received this year through CPC would go toward that project. I've
Got it.
already allocated prior years, and I'm sorry I didn't have that included here. But I provided an update to the Community Preservation Committee. We had some additional landscaping installed last summer to about $9,000 in the vicinity of the Sanborn School and a couple of residences in that location. And then the initial funding for installing the ramp at the end of the commuter parking lot next to the parking that's designed for the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. We wanted to add a handicapped accessible ramp at that location that was estimated at about $16,000. So that drains prior year community preservation funds. I think there might be $5,000 or $6,000 remaining in prior years. So the overall funding available yet for Bruce Freeman Rail Trail from the Community Preservation Committee is about $36,000, including this year's funding.
Okay. Other questions from the committee?
I just have one more question.
Yes, go ahead.
I'll try to be brief. Over these last months, we have talked a lot. Marcia's educated us on funding and where money comes from. I don't think I actually understand if the town of Concord has a certain amount of money allocated to the rail trail, meaning to repave it, fill potholes and things like that. And is that something that we're responsible for, or is that under a different auspices? So that's really my question. Is there a budget? Do we talk about it? Is that something that we're supposed to manage?
Yes, it is. The lease agreement that we have with the state means that the town is responsible for the maintenance, ongoing maintenance. These additional funds I'm seeking from community preservation funds are basically enhancements, things like the informational signs, landscaping, upgrades in materials and so forth. That's really separate from the ongoing maintenance, and Concord Public Works is responsible for maintaining the trail.
Okay.
But we've been working with natural resources as well. So there's a collaborative effort being
Okay.
made there.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Deborah, we have no budget, but we can advise. So that's what we do. Last question from me on the last half mile. We spent a lot of time in this committee over the last 2 years working with the White Pond Advisory Committee, with the Butters on Stone Root Lane, with the Old Picard Farm Trust. Do you feel, Marcia, that all the parties are kind of aligned around what needs to be done in the last half mile from a fencing standpoint? Or do you feel there'll be some other issues that you can foresee coming up?
The only additional issue that that I'm working with the project manager for Mass DOT is labeling private properties. We have in-house skills. Will Holden is very talented and has made some nice wood signs, routed wood signs that we want to use. Eamon Kiernan, the project manager for Mass DOT, is going to include in the contract documents the provision of the poles and the installation of these signs for us, which would be at the property line. So
50 feet.
we're
back,
looking at, yeah, the 50 foot either side. So I've requested 4 signs, 2 for the White Pond sign and to designate the Old Picard Farm Trust lands, and then 2 just generally located between property lines as they intersect with the right of way.
Okay, but you don't think, as far as we know, we're okay on the fencing issues right now.
As far as I know, I did get, one of the Stone Root Lane abutters did reach out and ask questions. I offered to meet with her the week of May 16th and to go over the plans and so forth. So they may have some additional comments, in which case we'll try to address them through.
I just wanted to get a sense, and I appreciate all the work that you've done and that the committee's done to kind of work through this latest round of stuff. So
And
thank
I
you.
think since Josh Galper was at the meeting this morning representing the White Pond Advisory Committee, I think that we've addressed their concern with the
Okay.
fence.
Great, thank you. I noticed, Ms. Clendon, you have your hand up. is there something you have about Marcia's memo that you wanted to raise as a member of the public?
Yes, Ellen Glendon, 64 Stone Root Lane. I did the site walk this morning with the Natural Resource Committee and the Trails Committee. There are a number of questions that did come up. But Marcia, specifically according to your plan, you said it was posted currently, the current April plan for
April
2022.
2022, yes.
I just wanted the fence that goes along the Stone Root Trust property is indicated as ending at station 14. Is that accurate?
I would have to look at the plan.
Sorry.
I don't have that in front of me. I think it starts at 14 and goes to 1335 or something like that. I'd have to read the note. It's supposed to start near White Ave, the end of White Ave, and continue to just short of the embankment where there's an existing trail that goes off the path.
I think you specifically mentioned a distance of about 5 feet from the edge of the berm to where the fence would end. Does that
no,
sound right?
No, that doesn't sound quite right. We requested 200 feet of additional fencing. I'd have to look at the plans, Ellen. So maybe I can follow up with you at another time after I've had a chance to look at those again.
Great.
That'd be great.
Okay. Thank you very much, Marcia. Thank you, Ellen. Before we move on to the next item, I just want to make a comment about the work the committee's done on Junction Park, which we'll be talking about tonight. I just want to recognize that first the work of Adrian and Tracy and the subcommittee to really over the last 5 months try and get input from everybody. It's come to my attention that a couple of people have said, well, the Freeman Rail Trail Committee is a bicyclist committee, and we are not. We're a committee that is diverse, that we are interested in all trail users. And as such, that's who we represent. We don't represent one group over the other. And I think the work that the committee's done in Junction Park to incorporate input from walkers, from folks in wheelchairs, bicyclists, people with kids, with dogs, et cetera, shows that we have a wide-ranging view. So I just wanted to get on the record that our committee is not a bicyclist committee. It is a committee that represents trail users and is advisory to the town on all matters related to the trail. So I just wanted to make that point before we started into the rest of the committee business. We have on the agenda a wayfinding sign grant. As Marcia said, Mr. Faverman will be here around 8. So we're going to go to the next item on the agenda, which is Willard School Service Day. There's been a request from Willard School they have a service day for their kids. And Kelly Crowley, I think you're here somewhere. There you are. If you would please take the floor and give us a couple of minutes on what you're looking for. I don't think we necessarily have to take action or vote on anything, but we'd like to hear what your ideas are, and please.
Sure. Yeah. So Service Day has been happening at Willard for many years, I think around 20 years actually. And it was designed just before the kids go on to 6th grade for them to kind of give back to the community. I think at certain points over the years, 5th grade classes have given a class gift per se. And I was a big proponent this year of just our gift is Service Day, just get out in the community and help. So we do have a couple of sites already planned. There's about 20 kids going to Gaining Ground. There's between 30 and 40 kids doing various projects at the Council on Aging at Harvey Wheeler. And we had hoped to do a project at on White Pond trail maintenance, but everything that's going on there, it's just not possible to have a group of kids there at this time. So the rail trail seems like a logical place given its proximity. The kids from Willard could walk, and a couple of ideas are if there's anyone from the committee that would be willing to either walk the trail with the kids and talk about trail maintenance and perhaps identifying areas that might need help and why, or I don't know any other rules around the rail trail, but you know, these kids that were going to go to White Pond with rakes and, you know, just kind of cleaning up the trails, which I think is a great activity for kids to do. If there was anything, a need that the rail trail folks could identify. And I'm really open to anything, but somewhere that the kids can walk from their school and provide service.
Yep. Marcia, I believe you had some thoughts since the town owns the trail.
Correct. Well, we don't own the trail, but we
Well,
do
you're
maintain
responsible
it.
for it. Sorry.
We're
Yeah, thank you.
responsible. So Kelly, I spoke with Natural Resources Director Delia Kay, and the two of us would like to meet your group out at the tunnel, Powder Mill Road Tunnel. There are some invasive species that we can identify, and maybe they can help us eradicate some of them. I'll see if we can get some perennial plants and see if we can do some planting. And then there were some informal trails that were created that haven't really been removed. And so we would want the kids to use those rakes to cover those trails with some branches and leaves and debris or pine needles or whatever. And so Delia and I can coordinate with you and see what we can come up with. But I thought that might be a great little project.
Yeah, I think that's great. Thank you so much. I love it.
That would be that serpentine path where we would focus a lot of our attention.
Yes.
Right off
So
of the road.
yeah, I live on Jenny Dugan Road, so I know exactly where you're talking. Yeah.
Great.
Perfect. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Crowley. And maybe I'll come out and watch what you guys do, just to invite any other members to come out once we have a time and date set.
The kids really loved this day, and it's so fun to see them excited in their community. So yeah.
That's good. Could you remind me what the day is again?
Sure, it's June 2nd, and it's a Thursday, and it's going to be like a block of time in the morning, probably leaving Willard on foot around 9:30, but I have to shore up those details with the fifth grade teachers.
Okay. I guess we don't need to announce it on the website, but if you wanted to, we could put it on there, but that's fine. That sounds good.
And I was just wondering if, since we'll have a captive audience, maybe the children, you know, I think you think of a rail trail and then you think of habitats. It might be interesting for them to understand what is the importance of a rail trail, you know, just a super brief, you know, 5 sentences on, you know, why are rail trails important? How did we reclaim, you know, rail beds that were just sitting there? And so it's reusing, you know? So I'm just wondering, a lot of their peers.
So Deborah, it sounds like you've got a really good idea there. Maybe we can find someone to do that. I think there is a historian now, but he might be too long-winded a speaker. So I do like that idea. So let's take that up, and maybe we can coordinate with Marcia, and maybe one of us can do it. Because I know you have a crazy schedule, Deborah.
For a little while.
For a little while. Okay. Some of us are not fully employed at this point, but may have more time. All right, good. That sounds great.
So Kelly, my email address is on the town's website, but it's mrasmussen at concordma.gov.
So I will find you. Don't worry.
Okay. Great. We'll be in touch.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Kelly. Anytime. Okay. The next item on our agenda is the trail count program. And I'm here to say, since it's been sitting in my lap, that due to various and sundry things, while the official count is supposed to be next week, I have not got our act together yet. And I've reached out for some help from another member. And I talked to Casey Claude who basically runs the state's camp program, and she assured me that if we do a different week, that'll be okay. So I apologize to the committee for not getting it all together, but we will have a trail count in the spring, and once I get some help to do that. So that's where we are with that. Any questions, comments? All right. Let's see, 8 o'clock is when Mr. Faberman will be here. So we're going to move to the next item, which is the Junction Park conceptual redesign discussion. And I am going to, can I share my screen, Marcia? Okay,
Yes, you should be able to.
okay. So I'll see if I can, there we go. So Tracy was kind enough to put together a short deck. Let me see if I can find the presentation button here. It's going to be short. What I'd like to do is just remind everybody that our task was to come up with a set of conceptual redesigns and make a recommendation to the select board, a written recommendation. The recommendation should be about ensuring safety and separation of users in Junction Park. We were to have a recommendation for a short term and a recommendation for the long term. And our reports due on June 30th of this year. What we've done since April, we meaning Adrian and Tracy and myself as a subcommittee, we've reviewed all of the concepts that we had put together. We ended up with 10 eventually. Last subcommittee meeting, we picked a short-term item to a recommendation to go ahead with. We presented also at our last meeting, in addition to having some visits to Junction Park individually, I went there twice, took a bunch of pictures. I know Tracy and Adrian went there. At least I know Tracy and I have ridden the Concord to Lowell route, well, actually Acton to Lowell, because there's no bridge yet, to get a sense of kind of, what a trail user's like. And I'm going to ask Tracy at some point to share a little bit of her thinking on that. And I think one of the big items that we had put together was to meet with the MBTA to understand whether they might be able to allow us to potentially use some of the land on the parking lot next to the Junction Park. So we had that meeting on, April 20th. I was meeting with the chief engineer and the chief real estate officer for the MBTA, both senior executives there. We had two conversations. The first one was just the chief engineer. The second one with both of them. Marcia attended as well. And the bottom line is that the MBTA doesn't feel that if they give up any part of the parking lot, they risk ruining the potential economic benefit of the lot for the lessee. And the lessee right now is the Club Car Cafe. So they clarified that at this point, thinking about using some of their land is not a viable option. So it will not be part of our recommendation. At the April 26th meeting, we discussed, in addition to the MBTA, we reviewed all of the long-term conceptual redesigns. And as a subcommittee, we voted to move forward with Junction Park Design number 4, which I'm going to show in a second. The agenda for today, we've covered that. So we will both review the reason for the project, which I've done, and then talk about the Junction Park 4 design, deliberate as a committee, and then discuss our next steps for the long term. With regard to the short-term planning, we've already voted on the short-term conceptual redesign as a recommendation. I think all of you have seen this chart. Just gives a sense of how long this rail line's been here, and then the adding of the park in the 2000s. And then we're going to have to update this, July 2022, and that'll be November 22 when the Route 2 bridge opens. So we actually end up having more time for our short-term recommendation to be carried out. And we think Sudbury will be completed, phase 2D will be completed in late 2024 if we're lucky. This I already mentioned before, kind of what our recommendation is to include, the date of June 30th, and what is a difference between a short-term and a long-term solution. Essentially, short-term solutions are something that could be implemented with limited or no funds. And the long-term solution would be much more planful, well thought out, requiring much more changes and money to do. The long-term plan that the subcommittee, after reviewing all of them, came to think as the one to recommend. And so what we're doing is we're passing this recommendation of the subcommittee to the full committee. And that is to move the path. If you can follow my cursor, essentially the greenish area, the slightly shaded area, is where we would propose that the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail users use, bikers and walkers, that they go off to the left here. It will go right along the property line, so it will not encroach on MBTA parking spaces or their lot there. We will continue to have the pedestrian path here, but it's shifted slightly to the east. One of the issues that came up as we were discussing this is that looks like the pedestrian path is thinner than it was before. And I think this is just something we have to design in, make sure the path is as wide as before. And then the buyer retention area that's underneath is currently sitting in this area will either you go over it with a raised path, or you think about how you might move it around. These are all issues that I think are worth discussing after the select board decides what they want to do. But our recommendation would be that this is a conceptual redesign where the path is to the west side, bordering the MBTA lot, that the pedestrians have a free and clear path. And obviously there are many design details that need to be thought through and worked through with other stakeholders like the Concord Green Thumbs, West Concord Advisory Committee, and other users of the park. But we feel that this meets our charge from the select board to provide safety and separation of the users. And I just want to pause and say thank you to everybody, the 550 people who answered the survey, all of you who showed up many times at meetings and subcommittee meetings, those of you who met us in the park for walks, etc. All of you helped us to come up with a conceptual redesign. And a couple of other things just to point out, the east-west path here is eliminated, and that may or may not be useful, but we seem to get some feedback potentially that was a safe idea. And the idea of protecting the railroad tracks and people going across is an integral part of this. In other words, it's planters or it's something that ensures that people don't just walk across the railroad tracks without knowing that there's something there. Let's see. The other cons or things for conversation were if we relocate or change the buyer retention area. I can't read the rest of this. Can we cover it with a boardwalk? What do we need to do? Again, these are design details. There are 3 trees we've identified that either need to be relocated or we would lose them. One of them is a very large tree. And again, it's only money. You can take a tree that large and you can actually move it, replant it. But again, that's not really our that level of detail is for people smarter and more equipped than us. We talked about the narrower path. There is some question about, do we lose some of the open park feel? And ideally the rail trail would be as far left as possible at the pedestrian walkway from across the street. So maybe there's a slight, and maybe you actually use a little more of this area for the path to make sure that rail trail users know that this is the direction that they go in. In this path, we lose one bench area, but again, I think the benches and so on are all part of a more detailed design with a landscape designer and engineers and so on and so forth, and a good site plan. So I'll pause for a minute. This is I guess I should leave the plan up. Sorry, let me do that again. So people can see what's what. And I can't see everybody who, and all the committee members, but do any committee members have questions or comments about this long-term JP4 plan?
Nat, just one comment to call out, just to make sure everyone's aware that we had also discussed that a lot of the key components of the short-term plan would obviously remain in the long term. So things like, we discussed a welcome to Junction Park sign that
Right here,
encourage safe multi-use of the park, right? To call out that it's a shared cyclist pedestrian area and to encourage people to act smartly as they're going through. So just wanted to call out, even though it isn't specifically called out in this plan, a lot of the fundamentals that we talked about, perfect, in the short-term plan would obviously remain in that long-term proposal.
Right, and the base of the short-term proposal is some sort of entryway that holds people accountable, reminds them that they're going into a shared use park and to behave appropriately. And then planters, and I'm not sure this is illustrative. This is not necessarily what would eventually show up, but one to kind of guide anyone coming in or going towards the tracks that they need to go on the trail. And the idea is to visually block it. But thank you, Adrian. Other comments from committee members or questions? Again, I can't see everyone, so speak up if you have one. Tracy, is there anything you wanted to add?
I guess I'll just add that just in case you don't remember the other plans, all of the others involved a lot more changes. So this was the plan that required the least change. And the reason you can do that is because the rail trail is as far left as it can go, or far west. I guess I should use directions. And so as you can see, the whole right side is unchanged. I don't know, Nat, if you want to point to just the small areas that are changed with this plan.
Right, so along here, and the path is moved over, and there is some change here to the X marks the spot.
Is there?
Right, there is a little bit. It now it comes a little more here. I can show you with. You see, it's got a little bit of.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So because we're moving everything to the left, so there is some change, and again,
okay.
I think the Green Thumbs, landscapers, and others can work to add back benches, maybe rethink some of it. But the basic concept is move the trail users to the west side and separate them, and then do the rest with it. I do remember I had a couple of comments from folks who said we should do more up in this area. Not we, but there may be a way to do more plantings and other things up in this area to beautify it. Although I learned that this was, I guess, well, never mind, I'm not going to go there. Other committee comments or questions?
Richard might have a comment.
There was talk at one point. Am I muted here? No.
Oh,
there was one talk about the area that's being taken over the retention area using a boardwalk type approach. Is that part of it? Did you mention that, or did I miss that?
Yes, right here. It's
okay, sorry about that.
Right. No, that's fine. Go ahead, Tracy.
Yeah, I was just gonna say though, somebody had a good point though, that those plants require sunlight, and there was a concern that if we cover it, they might not survive and it might not serve the purpose that was intended.
Of the retention center. Okay.
Yeah. So definitely some things to be worked out.
I think it's something to still consider, because then that would not be permeable necessarily and could flow into some retention that could be there. Obviously, you need an expert to figure that out.
Right. I think we did talk about how drains would serve the same purpose, though. I don't know how expensive that is or whatnot.
But there actually is a drain in the middle of the current retention area. There's one of those upside down bowl kinds of drains that's in the bottom there.
So if there was a way to be above that, could that minimize some costs or something? I don't know. Obviously.
I guess another
my
thing.
only comment is I really appreciate all the work you guys put in on looking at a variety of options and trying to balance, a lot of needs together. And I think that this is a good compromise.
Thanks, Richard. I guess I would just add what you don't. Sorry, there might be another comment after me. What you don't see on the map is beyond this. I think that when we have a recommendation, we will need to think about what happens on the other side of the train tracks. I did the trail this past weekend to experience it on a bike since it had been some time. And I took the proper way to do it from like behind Neshoba Bakery, taking the trail, crossing over, and then going behind, like right next to the tracks. Anyway, so I popped out there. Now I'm forgetting what I actually meant to tell you. Completely
You're
lost.
saying
my mind.
that there's additional work that needs to be done on the other side of the
thank
tracks.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Deborah. I was like, where was I going with this? Been a long week. Yes, I was just saying, so for one, I mean, I think if I wasn't on this committee, I would have no idea where to go from there, even though it's completely obvious now that I'm on the committee and I see it and I look for it. But so we do need some signage or some indicators on that side. And then as I popped out into Junction Park, of course, there was nobody on that whole stretch, you know. So anyway, as I popped out there, it was just very clear that you have no idea where to go if you're not from there. There's no indication. I mean, there probably is a sign, but you can't see it as you're coming in. So anyway, I just think granted, I was a part of it, but I know it makes sense that we will have some indicators of where to go with the planter. That's really necessary. It was just very clear when I experienced it this weekend.
Other committee member comments?
Yeah, I just had a comment. And thank you for including in this the issue of safety over by the actual railroad crossing itself. That was something that I thought was very important from a mission perspective in this whole effort. My question is there anything else? You know, I think in earlier meetings I've mentioned, or I asked if we could have those traditional railroad, I don't know what you call them, whatever you call them, the
gates
that come down.
Yeah, the gates,
Right.
yeah.
I know that would be a different department, Marcia, but you know, that's my only ask. You know, is that something that's possible? Otherwise, I do think this is reasonable. I've read all the notes, and I know that the biker community just continues to ask, you know, why are we doing this? But I think this is a very fair compromise, and it will be beautiful. It will increase safety and awareness, especially with the signage. But that's, you know, that's my only question is, you know, can we have those, the additional railroad crossing?
If you're talking about crossing gates at the existing pedestrian crossings, is that what you're asking?
Right. I think on right in the area. Yeah, where you were saying, I think you're gonna have planters put there or something.
Yeah, you're asking about gates right here. Yep.
Yeah.
But they would not have a purpose at that location. And
I know there's no cars. I get it. I know there's no cars. I understand.
No. I mean, people can step off the platform now and walk across the tracks. And so where would you put the gates at?
Did you put them between the tracks? Or
There's
did you
not
put them?
enough room. The tracks are
Okay.
too close together.
Got it.
So you can't put it in the middle. And the platform is wide open, so people can walk around if you were to put just the gates. And then you wouldn't be able to have access to the train if you put gate off or if you fence off the platform. So it's physically impossible to just put the gates in at the existing pedestrian crossings without, it would have no purpose. I mean,
is there a flashing sign that's already there?
No sign.
Can we
But
do
I
that?
think, yeah, I think
Yeah, but this is a separate issue and a separate conversation. It
Absolutely.
really
Understood.
doesn't belong here.
Yeah, and I think, Deborah, to your point, in the report, we can say more needs to be done. And then we push it up to the town and the select board. I mean, we all know there's been
That's all. That's great.
one accident there, but it's not in our bailiwick. However, I think you were one of the first people I remember mentioning. When was it? November, when we did the first site walk? I think I remember you mentioning something to me about the crossing, and it grew on me as something that we need to mention. I think all of us agree. We have to say something. It's not in our remit, but the town should be thinking long-term about safety there. So,
Thank you.
good point.
That's all. Thank you very much.
Other questions from the committee?
One other question, when you mentioned sidewalk, is there any need on anyone's part to do another site visit?
I don't feel one, but I'm going to defer to the rest of the committee. Do we need to have one?
I guess not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think-
my thinking almost at this stage is I wonder if we offer to the select board when we're presenting our report to them, or however it gets shared with them, that certainly we could meet them on site to help them kind of visualize some of these plans. But I think in terms of finalizing our recommendations to them, I personally don't see the need for another site walk at this time.
I don't want to ambush you, Terry, but you are on the call. Is there anything, I mean, would you guys like to come down to the Junction Park after we give the report and kind of walk you through what our thinking was?
Sure, or perhaps right before, perhaps you could give us a report and we can set aside this walk and then have it on our agenda after that.
Okay.
Really,
Perfect.
that-
Okay.
But I really appreciate all the work you guys have done. This is really excellent. Thank you so much.
Well, you're still going to have a lot of work to do as a select board.
I
So
know.
I just want you to know.
We'll be working with you. Let's put it-
Yes, thank you. At this point, I want to open it up to any questions or comments from the public. I think this is a good time to do it. Bill and Sally Satterthwaite, I see your hand up as first. Would you please identify yourselves and come on in?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Sam.
No, Phil first.
Okay, I think it's great. I mean, I think this is the basic plan, but I think that it really has to have the sidewalks at what they are now, which is 12 to 13 or more feet. And it's still 8 or 9, it looks like. But it's easy to get that width. Simply take it out of the yellow area that's between the pedestrian sidewalk and the rail trail. That isn't doing anything for the park.
Right. And I think just to respond to that, Mr. Satterthwaite, I mentioned it when I showed it that that's one of the cons we have to, when we send it up to the town, we're going to have to say, look, we mean for it to be the same width as it has been. So we heard you actually mentioned that in the subcommittee meeting, and we have taken that up and we hear you. We just did not redo the map.
I was concerned because you said maybe on the list of cons. That's fine.
Oh,
Sounds
sorry.
great.
Okay.
I heard the term circulation plan last night at the West Concord Advisory Committee meeting, and that made me start thinking about where the trail comes out and has to cross the sidewalk. I've been thinking about it already, but that reminded me that there are disciplines and there are probably models involving the predicted traffic volume that we're going to have. Is that all part of the database that the committee's working with?
We do not have a database. This is a conceptual redesign. My working theory is that people much smarter than us who are going to, once the select board decides what they want to do, and I assume town meeting gets involved at some point, and if all this is okayed for the long-term plan, that smart people will think about what happens at the sidewalk, what about circulation. That's what you pay designers and architects and so on, engineers to think about. So it's not in we're not working from a database, but I would hope that the town, when it takes this up, if they take it up, will do it the right way.
Great. So if we have the short-term solution going until they really know for sure that the long-term solution will probably work, well, for sure, probably, that would be nice. I'm always reminding people to don't assume we're going to have to change the design in the end. We might find the short-term one.
I think that's a really good point. Ms. Katz, name and address, please.
Cynthia Kath, 20 Conant Street in West Concord. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Ms. Katz.
Thanks. So one of the things that came up in your last committee meeting, so thanks for all this process, that I think you guys weren't aware of because you don't hang out in West Concord, is that the Junction Park isn't a thoroughfare. And then it really is a very small gathering spot for a real wide range of age groups and people types. Everything from real little kids with their moms, but a lot of teenagers. I think giving teenagers a place to hang out that's safe in this world without their parents is really important. And one of the biggest places they hang out on is that little cross thing. But one of the reasons that works so well visually is that you don't cut off the way it comes in to go out. So you chop it in the plan that you have, which I think was bad. But the two things I want to say is, I agree with Bill. It needs to be the same with the walking or the park part of it. And last night I was walking through Cambridge Common. And I don't know if any of you have been there, but it's a common use pathway. And it states it right in all the signage. Common pathway, bikes yield to all, everyone keep right. And as I was walking, there were pedestrians and bikers, and it went fine. The problem is we have a two-way area. I don't know if that's a problem. Actually, I guess that's a two-way area too, but I happen to be moving in the same direction with everyone and no one ever came that way. So I really hope, like Sally, that we don't have to resort to this plan. I hope the temporary plan works. I hope that the committee and the select board can figure out a way to get that signage on the ground for bikers, that big green thing right at the beginning of Junction Park on both sides. So you have an arch and you have a thing on the ground, and hopefully you'll get the feeling of what's important.
Common pathway. Thank you, Ms. Katz. Ms. Perrin, name and address, please.
I wanted you to
You're muted.
Yeah.
Hello,
Yes.
Judy Perrin, 16 Concord Green, West Concord. I just had a question about the design. The section in the middle that divides the two paths, is that grass or is that something else? Is that planted?
This area here?
Yes.
Yeah, it's planted. It's something green, or it's not figured out yet, but it's supposed to be similar to the rest of these yellow areas that are on this plan. So that will be up to, I assume, the landscape design of the green thumbs, and whoever does the final version of this would figure out what goes in here.
Okay, I'm just saying, because I walk there almost every day and it's very convenient to walk across, from 7-Eleven right away.
Right.
Like if you go into the library or going downtown. So
Right,
just
no, that
wondering
does,
about that.
Yep. No, so there was a fair amount of discussion about that. But we were trying to minimize the crossing of people using the trail versus people using the park. So this is one of the trade-offs that we ended up with. So now you'll go around this way, or around another way. So yes, that was the answer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I think we should, as a committee, there are two things we need to do now. I think one is the committee should just vote to approve this as our long-term plan. And then we need to go ahead and we need to draft our recommendation. So in the first instance, if there's no more discussion by committee members, I'd like a motion to recommend as our long-term conceptual redesign, what we referred to as Junction Park 4, that plan we've been showing. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, and a second, thank you. Any discussion? Had a discussion, okay. I'm going to take a roll call now. Richard Follander?
Aye.
John Soden?
Aye.
Deborah Edelman?
Aye.
Adrian Boardman?
Aye.
Dorcas Miller?
Aye.
Tracy Hansen?
Aye.
Mary Beth Parker, you're muted.
Aye.
Thank you. And Nat Welch votes aye. The motion is passed unanimously by the members who are here. Our second item is the actual drafting of the document, and we did discuss an outline for it. I would like to discuss this for a couple of minutes. My suggestion is that between Richard and I as co-chairs, we figure out maybe hand off some pieces to different people to write. But I think in the end, it's probably one of the co-chairs' responsibility to finalize it. But I think I'd like to be able to call on other members over the next 4 weeks to maybe draft a couple of pieces. The intent would be to come back to the committee for our June meeting. We would have a draft that would before the meeting so that people could read it, we could make comments, and then whatever changes need to be made, we would make them. And then if there are a number of them, I think we probably have to call a quick meeting of the committee to vote on the recommendation, and then we put it together and send it to the select board, voted out of our group. Thoughts, comments, questions? And Marcia, if I'm breaking any rules, let me know.
I just wanted to let you know that Mark Favorman is in here. And so
Okay.
if you want to have that conversation first, or if you want Mark to do his presentation, I just wanted you to
I
be
think
aware.
we're pretty close. I think we're pretty close. I'd like to see if I can wrap this up. If generally the committee agrees with that approach, and we're, yes.
I'm certainly happy to contribute to the report.
Okay.
Marcia, did we say before we could or couldn't have like a OneDrive document? We
can't have a OneDrive document.
Right.
No.
Yeah, I think we started sending you pieces, right, of it?
Right,
okay.
right.
Yeah. I think one of us has to be put it together and be responsible for it. But we may ask people to write parts of it. And I don't want to, I guess, I don't think it's worth spending a lot of time right now, but I'd like to make sure all committee members, if I call on you and say, hey, would you be willing to draft a couple of paragraphs on this? If you'd be okay with that. And if not, you can say, no, I'm not okay with it. We'll figure out another approach. But I think, we can't put together a subcommittee to write the thing. I think one of us really has to drive it.
Yeah. What I can do is put bullet points together for as much as I can, and then send it off to somebody to finalize, because I've got a really crazy month coming up, so I can start it. And
good, that's great. Yeah. People do have lives outside of the committee, so I recognize that.
Okay.
Is any objections from the committee on that approach? Okay, great.
Matt, my only thought is I don't know how much else we have queued up for the June agenda, but I wonder if we should have a separate meeting that maybe just focuses on the report. Just hard to anticipate how much time we're going to need as a committee to review that. So just something for us to consider.
I think that's good. I think that makes sense. We might have to have a separate meeting for that. And we already need to probably bump our June meeting a little bit because of travel that people have. So let's cover that at the end. So if everyone's okay, I'm going to move ahead and I'm going to invite Mr. Faverman. Did I say that right, Mark?
As long as you don't call me late for dinner, it's okay.
Okay. open the floor up to you to wayfind for us for the next few minutes.
Okay, so am I sharing the screen already?
No, you're not.
You are not yet,
Okay,
but you're welcome to share the screen whenever.
okay.
Okay, there you go.
We'll get there. How's that?
Good.
Everybody can
Great.
see that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so give you a little background. A few weeks ago, we were commissioned to work on this project by the town of Acton. And my firm, Freeman Design, is located in Boston. And we deal with human scale urban design and planning issues, and wayfinding and signage or definitely in our wheelhouse. And we've done them for 35 different communities in the Commonwealth over the last several years. So this is a interesting challenge and a very exciting opportunity. These two maps sort of show you the breakdown of where the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail goes. Some of the communities have not really bought into doing anything quite yet. The Acton Concord rail trail are really sort of the largest entity of two communities. We'll be back to these maps in a second or so. See, so the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, I skipped something, I'm sorry. Their logo, or your logo, because you're friends of and advocates of it, is what I refer to as a narrative. That is, it has several pieces to it. Not optimal generally, but it's somewhat elegant. And early on, people started breaking it up, and so the dragonfly is a major element, and so we're picked up on that. And we looked at that as a standalone element. And we also looked at a cutout and a disc, which has a lot of practicality to it, and is more of a presence visually. And it also, at the last meeting, I just added this, Marcia, you'll be proud of me. It was suggested at the Acton EDC that we show mileage. And I thought, oh, well, so I did this in between meetings to show you that it is practical and functional. And that will give people a sense of place, sense of arrival, a sense of direction too. So here's the difference between the cutout disc and the silhouetted dragonfly. And we looked initially at blue for Acton and deep red for Concord, but now this is like the fourth or fifth meeting, and people are really feeling that black is probably better. It was brought up at a meeting a couple of nights ago that colorblind folks don't really see the difference between blue and red, and 30% of all men are colorblind. I don't know if you know that statistic, but it's a big one. So black would work in terms of readability. We also looked at arrows and direction, and also putting a QR code on some of the larger pieces of wayfinding and signage that you could read with your smartphone. The different types of wayfinding signage are identification, directional, regulatory, and informational. This one is in Chelmsford, and you see, and this was put up about 2-3 years ago, you see rail trail parking is the top arrow there. So they were thoughtful about it, though I haven't seen them put up any of the signs that we've done. The symbol on top is a beloved beech tree that was on the common in Chelmsford, and it died. And they put a cemetery marker on the common to the beech tree. So we made use of that leaf. And you can see that there. This is in Wellesley. Again, directional signage, the W for Wellesley. Notice the arrow to off-street parking. Sturbridge. We had an issue there. How do we compete with the grasshopper / cricket of the old Sturbridge Village? And we came up with a weather vane because Sturbridge feels like they're the center of New England. And every child in the 3rd or 4th grade goes and visits Old Sturbridge Village. So that's what they did. Now notice that the arrows are dissimilar. The reason is that the fabricator took license and they did what they wanted to instead of following what we wanted them to do. So they're different here. So consistency is something that we need to make sure we have when we implement them. This is a rather nice directory in Wakefield. And this is there are 3 or 4 of these around town. They're about 11 or 12 feet high, so they're big. But the this map and directory and the historical elements around it are something that we could do with this program. And what's interesting is that the map and directory are done on paper, so that if some of the stores or restaurants go out of business or change location, you can change this very easily. On the other side will be posters and events, upcoming events, and that can be also changed. This is a lockbox with a plexi front and a plexi back so that you can read through it, but also it's maintained and secure. Another question is, do we use symbols or do we use symbols and words? So something you can give us some input into. And you can see how these signs made use of distances. And we can look into that too, especially to the various retail or food areas that are close by to the rail trail. So here's an example of the larger directory. It can say on it, as you can see, Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. It can make all kinds of comments on the map that you are here will be there and give you a sense of a location and a sense of orientation. There's the trail marker, is the directional signs with the arms. Here are, this is something that I came up with because I think it fits. These are smaller signs and a smaller directory. And these can be done in multiples at a lot better cost. And the question is, how do we interpret this? Do we put a symbol for dining, the knife and the fork, or do we put for shops a bag, a shopping bag, or a cart, or do we leave the words? So I would like you to think about that and tell me your feelings about that as well. On the directory here on the right, in some cases, you could, to expand the system, you could have sponsorship by various entities. You see there are 3 sponsors at the bottom there, including a bank and including other institutions. So that might be able, you might be able to expand the program. So here are all the 5 elements so far that we're dealing with, and we're going to be costing out very shortly. So we'll know what each element cost, and then we can figure out how many can be placed where. And then we got really excited about, so we started looking at some thematic benches as well. These are not in the budget right now, but maybe one day in the future, aspirational, as Marsha would say, aspirational. And so 3 and 1, and then thank you. So I'll go back over everything. We can talk about it in detail.
Marcia, can I just ask a question, which is what's the ask of us tonight?
Just to provide some initial thoughts, feedback, arrow, if you like the shape of the arrow, do you prefer the circle with the cutout versus the actual, Dragonfly. Recall that I said 3 locations that we're looking at are one near Giroux Park. That would probably be just the pole with some of the pencil type signs that give direction to the recreation areas and where restrooms might be. The others would be on the north side and the south side of the Junction Village or West Concord Village. So we might be looking at the alternative type, or this might go well near the bike racks at Neshoba Bridge, where we have bike share program bikes this year. And this could point you to where the ice cream shop is, or where there's food, where the post office is located, where there might be other retail shops and restaurants, how to get to the library. Or we might do the larger Wakefield type sign close to where the bike shelter racks are located in the parking lot. And
so that's yeah, okay. So this seems most useful in terms of people coming into the town. I'm sorry, I'm kind of taking over, but it seems most useful for people coming into town to know what's there and where to find it. Then the question is, if you put it by the bike racks, that helps people coming in from the north.
And we would do a similar type of map, probably at the wooden kiosk that's on the south side of Main Street. So,
okay. So that was my first thought is, the more information, the better. I think the merchants would appreciate being, doing it. Then there's a question, we don't want it to be distasteful, right? Because this is West Concord after all. Anyway, other committee member thoughts or questions?
I have a question. If, in terms of that map, as a practical matter, if it would need updating, because obviously businesses change. I mean, who would be responsible for making sure it's up to date?
Well, the West Concord Junction Cultural District already has a map with businesses on it that they need to update. So we have that program already, and I think we would be preparing this type of map in Design, which is a software program that Concord already has, and I think Acton is in the process of doing it so that we can update it ourselves. And being a map, we have the ability to run large prints off, so we can provide these updates periodically without having to go outside of town staff. So once the design is finalized and Mark has everything put together, he would give us the template and we would then be able to do the updates.
Thank you.
Other committee questions?
So Marcia, when you were talking about the signs in Junction Village, I'm sorry, where were you saying this would go? Is it on the board across from the?
It's not Junction, it's West Concord Village. And there are 2 locations I was thinking of. I have to send the pictures to Mark right now, but one would be near Neshoba Brook. Is it one possibility?
Right, where the tracks are in cement, it's that little open area. Would you see it?
Yeah, by the bridge. Yeah.
By the bridge. Okay, good.
The other would be where they're currently installing the new bike shelters. So one or the other there would be one of these directional signs. And then the third location, there's a wooden kiosk, a very large kiosk. One side already has an informational historical panel on one side, and we wanted to do a current day panel on the opposite side. And so you can walk entirely around that wooden kiosk that is on the south side of Main Street. And so we would want to have the map as part of that. And so it's a separate item. Mark hasn't seen that yet, so we'll have to adjust accordingly.
And we can put on the map, you're here.
Yes.
So people can feel comfortable about where they are and where to go.
We have a question from the public. Mr. Posner, please weigh in and identify yourself. You're muted.
Mr. Chairman. Whoops.
Co-chair.
Mr. Co-chair. I have a comment and a question. My comment first, Mark, I'm a
Could you,
former resident-
sorry, could you identify yourself?
Oh,
for
yes,
a
I'm
minute?
sorry.
Thank you,
Phil
sorry.
Posner, Phil Posner, 223 Losbrook Road in West Concord. I'm a former resident of Wakefield. I didn't know that you were involved with the signage there, but I want to compliment you. I think the signs in Wakefield are really excellent. I'm familiar
Thank
with
you.
the one displayed, and I think it's terrific. And I had a question for you. I was wondering if you either have any information about or were involved in any way with regard to the proposal by MassDOT, Department of Transportation, to do wayfinding for bicyclists. And if you do have any information about that, whether there's any way to integrate what they were thinking about into this.
The simple answer is no, I don't. But I'll certainly, inquire and try to find out more about it.
Yeah, so I'll just say, apparently there was some kind of bicycling wayfinding signage initiative, and it's stalled out somewhere in MassDOT. And Marcia can give you my contact information, or Nat can, and I'll let you know the person who I've been talking with about that. I'm just curious because, of course, we want to be able to give people consistent information. And thanks. I think, like I said, the Wakefield piece was terrific. I really liked it.
Any other questions? So Marcia, I assume we're going to, you'll do the final work with Mr. Faverman and Acton and let us know what's coming in. Does any committee member have any, any issues with doing this? I think it's a great idea, and thank you for doing it. Any other comments on it?
I guess I'm just thinking if, no idea what the budget is here, but if you want to think a little further out, I think it could be even more helpful before you get near the shops to let people know, like, this is the general direction of the shops, like maybe out by the Route 2 intersection, like showing them you head towards West Concord one way, or you cross Route 2 to go into Concord Town Center, or maybe on the other end, like by
Williams Road.
I don't know street names. Across from the prison where the rail trail will go, wherever that is, maybe like there to show them that, hey, if you continue on the bike path, you'll end up at the shops, or you take the road, something, I don't know, just thinking like maybe a little further out.
I actually think that's really important, because when you get to Lowell in particular on the rail trail, everything kind of breaks down and you really don't know where to go. So I really like the idea of giving people advance information. It's very helpful.
I also like the idea of a sign that used to be near the Charles Circle, which was, if you lived here, you'd be home now.
The only other, I just had a question. We're not saying that we're wedded to that picture of the particular logo, or are we making that decision tonight, or
which logo are you referring to? The dragonfly?
The bug. Yeah, sorry.
The bug. So
yes,
so
we have committed to the bug.
Yeah, we are committed. It was done many years ago, Deborah. It's a very nice bug.
Okay.
And it tells the story of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. So that
okay. So
predates
maybe
us.
I just didn't realize that because when I look at the signage today, it's not just, it's probably just because there's more things. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. No, this is Bruce the dragonfly.
Okay, got it. Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
I think just sorry,
Go
Matt,
ahead.
just one
Okay,
comment from
yep.
me. So I know Mark had asked for our general thought on, like, do we like words? Do we like symbols for these signs? I don't know if the thought is that each town is deciding that for themselves. I guess that my thought would be it should be consistent, right? So if we're designing this from Acton to Concord, it should look the same.
At this point, with this plethora of committee meetings I'm going to, this is like my 6th in 2 weeks. we're looking for overlap. So if your group says, we like this, and we're trying to find other committees that say they look like that. I mean, it's very interesting. The black color came out of several different folks from different places saying they like the black better. And I think that's why you see this here. And it also makes it a lot easier because it means that it's consistent. But then we have to think about how do we, identify West Concord and Acton. And I just had a meeting in Acton, and they want, where the edges are. So there are ways we can do that. So yes, if you can, whatever you say is going to be helpful because it's part of the massive information we're trying to look at.
With an I'll give my opinion as well. Go ahead.
Do your signs take into consideration night viewership? We do have some rail trail riders in the evening. They have, headlights and so on.
It will be reflective. Yeah, we will make that part of the specification. They will be reflective material. Yes.
I like that. I was just thinking of when I was on the rail trail, I kept passing not only the dragonfly, which I didn't think about at the time, but something that actually said I think it said Bruce Freeman Rail Trail or something. I think maybe the words in addition to the symbol would be good, because then as you're on the rail trail, if you're like me and didn't really pay attention to the dragonfly, you'll keep seeing the exact same symbol. And I think that would be helpful for the repetition of it.
Okay, I think that on the two on the left here, we certainly could put Bruce Freeman Rail Trail there underneath West Concord and Acton. And certainly on any of the map directories that will say Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. So I don't know that we want to overdo it, but I think we certainly can
I think it was like a circle with the dragon, like the words were in the circles.
Tracy, I think in my mind, it's a little bit different. Like some of these signs symbolize that you're on the trail, but like in my mind, one directing where's dining and where's shopping. It's more like you're on the trail. How do you get to the community? And it's maybe less important to call out you're on the trail.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a matter of like where you include that. Like
we're going to try to find a balance. How's that between the two? And as I say at every meeting, it's very complicated and complex to make it look simple.
And that's why you get paid the big bucks, Mr. Faberman.
I'm looking for that job. I haven't found
it. But don't come here. No, it's okay.
Marcia, will the committee ultimately have a chance to review these before like they're finalized? Like it sounds like there's a lot of coordination going on between different committees and different towns.
No, probably not, but I can bring back what is finalized to you. As Mark pointed out, he has already had several meetings this week and last, and it's on a fast track. We need to get contracts signed or purchase orders in place by June 30th. So I can bring you an update for your June meeting, but it depends on how you want to run your agenda that night.
As long as, I guess my take is as long as it doesn't suck in terms of look and feel. It may not be exactly what we want, but I like the common theme. I think the ideas are the right ones. I really like bright red, but if it ends up being black, I'm fine with that.
And I was just thinking, looking at the sign, the shape of the sign that we had that was suggested for Junction Park about being a common path, a common shared space. We could actually take the design on the right-hand side and do something along those lines. And that
for a gateway in,
for the entrance points.
Yep.
So
that's a great point.
Yeah,
I like the shape and the form, and we would just use that space that shows the map for that sign as a possibility. And then there would be consistency with this whole program of signs.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Faberman. If there are no other comments from the committee.
I appreciate your time, and Marcia will keep you posted on any updates, and we are under the gun to get this done quickly, and we certainly, in the process toward the end, you certainly will be able to make some recommendations if we leave out something, or if you think something needs to be refined. We're not doing this in a bubble. So we're doing this with all of you in mind. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So two other items I included in the email to the committee, a request from Deborah Adelman regarding the e-bike paper. If you guys could take a look at it and send her any answers to those questions. She's trying to update the e-bike policy. There is some stuff happening in the State House, we hope. And your feedback to her in terms of what we might think about at the next meeting that she's at, we can talk about it. So take a look at what I sent and send something back to her, please, not to me. The other item of business is our next meeting. It's currently scheduled for June 2nd. And not that I'm important, but I know I will not be around on June 2nd, and I think another member is not going to be here. So I know it's getting close to graduation time, et cetera. And Tracy, I know that you mentioned you might be gone the 9th. Do you know yet?
No, I'm still trying to
Okay.
figure out the tail end of my trip.
So I'd like to propose the 9th as a date, not to diss you, Tracy, but just to try and get something in the calendar.
That's fine.
Would the 9th work for everybody who's here?
I would not be able to do the 9th.
You would not be able to do the 9th. Okay. Okay. So that would be at least two who might not be here. Any thoughts on an alternate, or should we just plow ahead with a date? And Adrian,
We
you'll
have to stay with a Thursday, or can we go with a different day of the week?
We could go with a different day of the week. Marcia might not be able to grace us with her presence since she has a lot of other things, but that's okay.
Okay.
I can co-host if necessary. Richard could co-host. Were you thinking of another day, Deborah?
Well, I'm just thinking, if the 9th didn't work for 2 members, then I say, what about the 8th? What about the 7th? What about the
Could
maybe
we
the
do the
14th?
1st, which is like a day before when it was originally supposed to be?
Wednesday the 1st?
June 1st is a Tuesday, I think, or Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Oh, I know, Tracy, you'd still miss it though.
Right.
Yeah, I can't do a Wednesday.
Maybe we just say a day and then people raise their hand to say they can do it that day. Might just be a fast way.
All right, so keeping up with the Tuesday idea, if we did, let me just go, after the 10th, after the 9th, it would be Tuesday the 14th. No, let's see, is that 14th work? Okay, all right. I don't think we need a vote. The co-chairs will call the 14th of June is our next meeting. And with that, I would like a motion to end the meeting. I'm sorry, we're 9 minutes beyond. Oh, yes, sorry, Richard.
Yeah, there's the correspondence.
Correspondence, go for it.
I have two quick things. One is I received information. You may recall that in the past we had sent a letter to Mass DOT regarding access to the trail from the neighborhood, Comerford Road, and the folks who live along Elm Street.
On 2A, yeah. Yep.
I received information that the state and Mass DOT has done preliminary work on laying out a sidewalk along that stretch of the road. And that also includes a signalized crossing. You know, people would push a button and it would be lit up for them to cross. There has been no money allocated toward it, but the preliminary engineering work has been done for that. And I think that it's a case of, I heard this from Michael Barrett's office, Senator Michael Barrett's office, who I think got involved in putting some extra pressure onto Mass DOT to do this. So I'll let you know anything else about that. In regard to the prison project, the prison cemetery project, there are students at Mass College of Art who are putting together a presentation about some of the lives of the prisoners who are buried at that site. They're going to be making this will be put online, but they'll be doing a public presentation of their project on June 15th at the Fowler Library. So, which will be the day after our meeting. I'll make sure all of you get an invitation to that event. So that would be the two things I want to report on.
And will the woman who is the doctor at Concord be invited, I assume?
Yeah, Patricia Root, yeah, she's involved in it. And
Okay, great,
And,
great.
and as Marcia mentioned, there's a small group of us who are meeting to move this forward and look at some private funding to assist the project. I
Okay,
saw that
great.
bench, that Dragonfly bench might be something we could look at, possibly to include it, because we did want to have a sort of a contemplative resting spot at that point, so to speak.
That's great.
That's a great term. So thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
If I may, Richard, could you share that letter with my office and with?
I didn't, it was an email I got. I'll dig it out.
Forward
Send
it,
it on,
that
yeah,
would be
yeah.
great. Thank you.
Good. And I realized I did not ask if there was any public comment before we motion to close the meeting. Anybody has any comments? Okay. I barely almost squeaked by. Bill and Sally, please. You're muted.
Those benches did not look very comfortable to me. That's the only thing I wanted to say.
You would not find it very restful or contemplative. Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you. May I have a motion to?
Wait, I can't figure out how to raise my hand, but I have a public comment.
Oh, Barbara,
Pipe,
please.
118
Yes.
Border Road. I don't know where the raise hand thing is. That's why you haven't heard from me all night.
That's okay. All right, go for
I
it,
have
Barbara, please.
one question for Marcia about the yellow flags in the islands at the road crossings that we had noticed that they had those in Acton, as well as painting the islands a red color, just to make the islands stand out a little bit more. The flags are kind of a rubberized.
Yeah, I
thing.
shared that information with the Concord Public Works. They have not ordered it. They've not installed it. I will follow up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pike. May I have a motion to close the meeting?
I motion to close the meeting.
Second.
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 Okay, take a roll call. Rick Hollander,
Aye.
John Soden,
Aye.
Deborah Edelman,
Aye.
Adrian Boardman,
Aye.
Dorcas Miller,
Aye.
Tracy Hansen,
Aye.
Mary Beth, I think, is left, and Nat Welch is aye. The meeting is now finished as of 8:43 p.m. Thank you all for your time and effort.